Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of Back in the Late 1900s with Jay and Rich. I'm Rich, and I think we're on our fourth episode, right, Jay?
We're on our fifth episode.
Fifth episode. Time is flying. And I'm Rich. Find me on all the socials at rich.paiva, reviews, Musipedia, Metal, Doom Charts contributor. Jay as the drummer in the amazing Holy Roller that seems to be getting all sorts of top 10 list stuff from what I'm hearing, right?
Appreciate it.
Jay, we obviously have a friend of the show now, I can say. Yeah. So you want to introduce our returning guest and what we're going to do tonight?
Yeah, and not just a friend of the show. I feel like at this point we've talked enough where Chuck's a friend. So we have on for part 2 of Chuck Kaye, the Roar of L'Amour. How you doing, Chuck?
What's up, guys? Listen, before we go on, nobody from accounts payable contacted me for my pay for the last year.
It's in the mail.
How long should I wait?
It's in the mail.
Yep.
What's up, Joe?
6 to 8 weeks.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad. Okay, what's up, guys?
Not much. How you doing? So I know last time we talked about. I'm getting a real bad echo. Cancellation. All right, can you guys hear me?
I can hear you fine, brother.
Cool.
Yeah.
So last time we did basically the heavy hits of stories from Chuck's days at L'Amour. Amazing rock and roll stories.
Thank you.
An amazing setting up of a scene and the birth of a movement. And today we brought Chuck back so we can talk about some of the legendary shows that happened at L'Amour's.
Oh, that's what we're doing? I thought we were going to do top 10 hottest chicks that made it up to the DJ booth. Hold on. I got a completely different list.
Pivot. We're pivoting.
All right. I found this one. Okay, I'm ready.
Cool. So I know that you've got some articles coming out about you and L'Amour. What do you got going on with that?
Yeah, I wanted to touch briefly on that because for those who have no idea who I am or how we reconnected, I came back to the scene basically May and started telling stories because I had an investigative reporter contact me, figure out who I was, and said he wants to tell the real story of the scene in L'Amour. So fast forward to now, I've been telling stories through then. I have 2 different people that want to do articles, and there's talk about a book, talk about, documentary. And here's what I wanted to say, why I'm glad you brought it up. There are people who live in a bubble that don't realize it's 2025 and not as many people care. And the writer who wrote a 10,000 page article, 10,000 word, 10,000 page, my God, 10,000 word article on myself and the club. And you really need like a Rolling Stone to publish that. These online metal sites, they're like 500 words. It'll just be like, hey, there was a DJ from L'Amour, a lot of cool shows, check out the website. So we're trying to figure out where to put the article, but doing things like your podcast, and there's going to be some local stories coming out. Hopefully we can build up enough interest where maybe we can get a full feature in a place like Rolling Stone or one of the bigger magazines. It's not, we'll do smaller ones in, like the online metal community ones that are basically just links. But it's really interesting to me how many people inside the community or people like you that came a little later are interested in that. It's 2025 going on 2026. That a lot of people don't really care about what happened in the 80s unless you're in that bubble. And that's what a lot of people don't realize. They're in the bubble, so it's a big deal. Somebody in 2026, do they really care about hearing a story about me hanging out with Blackie Lawless? Do they really care about me? Do they really care about Blackie Lawless? If you're in the community, absolutely. So that's what we're going at. So I'm glad you brought that up so I can just straighten that out with a lot of people.
Yeah, I think people should care. and I say that because the music that was around in the 80s and going into the 90s is what set the table for the music today.
Absolutely.
Um, and without those bands that were going through your club and going through City Gardens and Whiskey A Go Go and all the big clubs across the country, this scene would never have happened.
Right. Well, what scene? What scene are you talking about? Scene now?
Just
The scene?
well, just in general, just the heavy metal community.
Right. Yeah, no, it's definitely an interesting story. But to get really big interest, we got to find a way for it to appeal to people who are outside of that community. You know, and that's what we're kind of trying to figure out and where to go. So it's just not a heavy metal story. It's a story that people can get into who aren't even into heavy metal.
Yeah.
That's where the big thing is. So I'm glad you said that. It gave me a chance to to tighten up
So
what I meant by it.
I guess we're going back to the top 10 hottest chicks you had in the DJ booth.
I gotta get that list again. Okay, all right, here it is. I'll truncate it. Uh, number 2 to 10 are all tied, and number 1 knows who she is. Okay, I'm good at this shit, guys. All right?
Awesome. So let's jump into these shows. We talked offline through email about a handful of really legendary shows you guys had at Lemoore.
Right.
Um, so I'll just start at the top of the list, and they're all in the same bracket. So Metallica, W.A.S.P, Armored Saint.
Okay, so you want to know about them?
Yeah.
None of your business. Okay, now what do you guys know about that? That was the first real big legendary weekend we had. What do you guys know about that? I'm curious because you're about 5, 10 years behind my scene. So what do you guys know about that?
I don't know enough.
Okay, what about you, Rich?
That it happened, and
Yeah,
that all those people were in the same room at one time.
right. Okay, so what happened was we did 3 nights. We did a Friday, Saturday, and a Sunday, which was a late matinee. Metallica went on like about 11, so the club was closed by 1 a.m. And the Sunday show was an all ages show. That was the last weekend of January 1985. It's still to this day considered like our biggest group of shows one whole weekend. I mean, you can argue, the other shows we're going to talk about were individually bigger, but those are 3 nights sold out and incredible atmosphere. A lot of people think that we put the show together. We didn't. It was a tour that actually came around. But the Lemoore thing was the big one because, I mean, Armored State was huge in Lemoore, and they were going on, they were doing, a half hour. W.A.S.P brought in their complete stage show, and Metallica was Metallica. Uh, when I heard about that weekend, now, you guys know me, I'm not taking credit for anything I didn't do. I had nothing to do with the booking. Again, the club just accepted the offer and made them an offer. And the only thing that I was sort of in was, do you think we can do a Sunday matinee? And I said, yeah. And that was great. So basically, what happened was I had a blast promoting that because I had 3 bands that were playing that everybody knew that I could play. So it was nonstop for 6 weeks. 2 Metallica songs, 1 Armored Saint, 2 W.A.S.P songs a night, playing it. So the hype and the excitement about this weekend was really off the charts. So it was one of the few shows that I got there early. My friend Sandy was the stage manager, and I knew this would be crazy. As big as Lamar was, we didn't have that huge of a stage, and we didn't have stadium-sized restaurants. And W.A.S.P alone, with their stage equipment, you know, that would have been a big show for him to pull up. So the stage manager and the owners asked me to come in early in case there was anything that I could help with. And honestly, Sandy did a phenomenal job. So I walk in and I see everybody. I don't know anybody Metallica, anybody Wasp, anybody Armored Saint, but I get there early and I go into a booth to the booth for a little bit, and I come back down and I meet Rod Smallwood. If you don't know who Rod Smallwood is, he was Iron Maiden's manager, who was managing W.A.S.P at the time. He knew me from seeing me backstage at a few shows. So he goes, "What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm DJing." And he goes, "Get out of here." He goes, "Well." Randy Piper comes walking over. And he introduces himself, and we're talking, and Blackie comes running over in a panic, and he goes, "Sorry to interrupt." He didn't say sorry to interrupt. He's Blackie. He just interrupted, and he goes, "Rod, they want us to go on second on Saturday night." Now, what the agreement was on their tour was Armored Saint would always go on first. Metallica and Wasp would flip flop each night. Whoever headlined Tuesday would be the middle band Wednesday. So it fell into our lap that Metallica was going to be the headliner Friday and Sunday, which worked better for the club because we were the heavier club. Anywhere else, Wasp probably would have been the bigger band. So Rod Small was listening and he goes, "Chuck, what do you think? You know the room." Now I'm like, wow, this is kind of cool. And Blackie's looking like, who the fuck is this fucking guy going to make a decision? And I get it. I totally get it. I'm not even putting down Blackie. It's his band. He went up to his manager, and now there's some dude they didn't even know who he is making a call. And I go, honestly, in this room, Metallica's the bigger band, even though Wasp commercially is the bigger band. They sold more albums. I go, I get it. And Rod thanked me for the honesty. And Blackie said, I no, no, no. And he walked out in a huff. And no, he shouldn't say huff, but he walked out mad. And Rod followed him. And Randy comes up to the DJ booth to hang out with me. And Randy goes, "Yeah, that's not going to go over good with Blackie, but thanks for being honest." Long story short, Wasp did headline the Saturday show. They kept to it. Um, but he thanked me. Blackie was even really cool with me. And he thanked me for being honest about everything. And he was surprised he appreciated it. So the show doors opened at 9. At 7 o'clock, there was maybe 1,000 people already lined up outside. It was amazing. The only time I'd seen it like that was when Iron Maiden played. And the shows went off without a hitch. Armored Saint and Metallica shared a dressing room downstairs, a small room, size of a studio apartment. Wasp had the bigger dressing room upstairs because all their road cases. They brought their full show, the blades, the meat, everything, the whole thing that they did. Show went off spectacular. Wasp got over really good, not as big as Metallica, but they got over really good. And let me see, Randy Piper was hanging out in the DJ booth with me, and it was the first time I had like a legit rock star in the booth while the bands were playing. And so Armored Saints on, and so it's before Armored Saint came on. My apology. When Armored Saint went on, he had to go get into his gear, which is probably an hour. So we're sitting there, and I mentioned that he was in the booth over the mic, and the crowd goes nuts, and they started chanting his name. 2 minutes later, stage manager comes up and he goes, "Blackie wants to talk to Randy." He didn't want Randy doing that. He thought, that made the band look bad, and that's Blackie for you. So that show went off incredible. The next night, Wasp was the headlining band. Some people left, but not a lot. I was surprised. Again, went off without a hitch. The fun night was the Sunday. It was the first time all ages, not 16 and over, all ages. So just imagine being a 14-year-old, 15-year-old kid. You're going with your friends, your parents are picking you up. This was like something they circled on their calendar. They were so excited. We opened the doors probably 5 o'clock. By 5:30, it was the best crowd to this day I ever participated because they were in the legendary Lemoore. There were freshmen and juniors in high school, and they're seeing 3 bands they heard about or they knew. Wasp was on MTV. Metallica was the cool band their big brothers talked about, and it was so much fun. These kids were awesome, awesome crowd, the best crowd we've ever had. The show ended 12:30. We closed the club by 1 o'clock, and I close the booth. I come downstairs, and Blackie comes up to me and goes, "All right, where we going, Mr. New York?" And I go, "What?" He goes, "You got to know somewhere to go." And I was like, "Well, I know bars, but I don't." And then a guy that was affiliated with the club goes, "Let's go to the Limelight." Now, this is the first time I would be going to Limelight. Limelight this was 2 or 3 years before they even did metal shows. It was still like a dance club in New York. So myself and Wasp, we went to the Limelight, and yeah, a lot of fun stuff happened in the Limelight that night. But that was the series of shows I really think put Lemoore on the map because that's what every magazine wound up covering for us.
Well, and think about Sunday, right? You had an all ages show. You had kids that had never seen these bands before, but you gave them the opportunity to see these bands and probably change some lives that night.
Yeah, and it's like, and what was really funny about that night, a side story was, so like I said, I knew Rod Sport and Rod knew who I was from just seeing me, at Maiden. I won't say we're friends or anything, but he recognized me and knew me. So he sees me and he goes, I got a challenge for you. Play Rhyme of the Ancient Mariner. Now, do you know that song by Maiden?
Yeah.
Okay, how long is that song?
Yes,
10
minutes.
plus? Yeah,
And
so it's
that was
long.
pretty close. And it has that big lull where they do the voiceover. So I said, all right, fuck it. I wouldn't have done this on a Friday or Saturday because the crowd would have, but I was like, I'll just talk over the lull. And I just went with it. And I had the crowd chanting back, doing whatever it was, because they were kids. They were just wanted to have fun. And they're like, wow, somebody's talking to us over the microphone. It was so cool. So I did that, and Rod's in the DJ booth with me, and he just goes, that was the funniest thing I've ever seen. He goes, I can't wait to tell Steve Harris about that. He goes, that you had the balls to play Robert the Ancient Mariner in a nightclub. Yeah, it was awesome. What questions do you guys got about that show?
I was just looking at the set list, and it looked like on Friday night they closed with Metal Militia, which is
Yeah,
pretty awesome.
yeah,
I looking at the other couple nights, didn't look like they played that, but the I think the coolest thing about this is like you mentioned earlier, like people not caring about of a certain age about the metal scene, but like
right.
everyone cares about Metallica, and I don't think if you asked 95% of people who are Metallica fans that if they in 1985 opened for Wasp, they'd be like, "You're fucking crazy." They
Yeah,
never opened. Metallica never opened for Wasp before. I don't think anyone really understands that
yeah, it's a real good
how
point.
that dynamic worked. You know what I mean?
That was a real good point. That was, even though if you were like a diehard like me, you knew the scene 2 or 3 years prior. The scene meaning the heavier thrashier bands, like it started with Metallica, then Slayer, blah blah blah. But it was still just like a metal community. I mean, Metallica played a show in Staten Island, opening up for Vandenberg and the Rods. Vandenberg, Wasp was heavier than Vandenberg was. It was just bands were like, there's this. If you weren't Def Leppard, everything, and or Quiet Riot or Van Halen, everything else is kind of underground at that point. Motley Crue was just getting big in 83, 84, 85. So it started splintering out around that time. But yeah, there were no issues. Now, I know the guys in Metallica didn't like Blackie, and Blackie didn't like them, but like Randy Piper and Chris Holmes had no problems with the guys with Metallica and vice versa. It was, and everybody, at least on the 3 shows I was at, everybody was professional about it. But what was crazy was Ahmed Saint could have headlined the club and packed it. And they're doing like 35 minutes, but they were playing in front of a packed house because everybody got there early so they can get as close to the stage as possible. It was an atmosphere we never saw again before or after that. What else do you think on the set list? Do you guys like Wasp at all? Did you care about them?
I did. So I remember being a kid and seeing them put out the single on vinyl for "Fuck Like a Beast,"
Yeah.
and because it had the word "fuck" in it, as a kid, I was like, I need to fucking have that. Um, but
Mommy,
they
what
were
does fuck like a beast mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
they were fantastic. I love their music. I know they came around last year, I think, on tour doing a reunion thing.
Right.
Um, I didn't go check them out. I know a lot of friends did, but it just wasn't on my list of things to see at this point in my life.
Yeah. Yeah,
I heard
this was
mixed
on their
reviews
first
on that.
this was on
Yeah,
their first album, so this was on their heaviest too. So this is
yeah,
what LOVE, Love Machine, and I Want to Be Somebody and Fuck Like a Beast. So
yeah.
they fit a little more with Armored Saint and Metallica than they would have like 2 or 3 years later for sure.
Yeah. Then for Metallica, was that Kill 'Em All or is that Ride the Lightning?
That time was Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, it was between. I think Lightning was 84 and Puppets was
Yeah,
86, right?
Ride the
Yeah.
Lightning came out prior to that, so they were touring on the Ride the Lightning album. But Metallica played the club before. They played as an opening act and as the headliner. They opened up for Manowar, and then they headlined with cities, and I think Anthrax might have opened up once for them. It was the first
Yeah.
time I was working with them, but they played the scene for a bit. They were stationed in New Jersey for a long period of time at my buddy Metal Joe's house from
Yeah.
the old British militia, another guy we possibly bringing in, and they wrote Ride the Lightning on it in his house.
That's
They
awesome.
even went on Howard Stern and told the story of writing Faith in Black on his couch when they were just acoustic guitar, and they were like, "Wow, this is kind of cool to do it on acoustic." But yeah,
That's awesome.
that weekend was the first weekend that I think made a little more nationally known, if you're going to call
Yeah.
it that.
So moving on from that trio, because we're starting over. That was starting off a banger. Um, I want to move into. I think it's your favorite band, Chuck.
Yeah.
Cheap Trick.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I just bought tickets to go see them in March here in Melbourne,
Fayetteville.
Florida. So
Oh, that's right.
yeah, I'm in Florida. So
Awesome.
the college here occasionally gets a good show. Last show I saw there was ZZ Top, and
Wow.
now we get Cheap Trick. So I'm very excited.
Yeah.
I've never seen them before. So
Yeah.
You never saw them before?
no.
I would be shocked if they tour again after this. And I saw them in October on the 24th in Atlantic City. Rick's hurting. Rick's going to be 77 in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
He still, I mean, I don't think there's been anybody who's played consistently like he has for over 50 years. Like there are older rock stars, but they'll do 10 dates every 3 years. Cheap Trick's still doing 150 dates a year outside of the pandemic. But yeah, so Cheap Trick's a wild story. I made Cheap Trick a little more popular inside a little more because it was me. I was the DJ. I played them. People knew I liked them. I knew what songs to play on. So, I'm not playing what I want you to want me when Slayer's playing. I'm not fucking that crazy.
Yeah.
But people like hearing Clock Strikes 10 on a Hard Rock night. Or they like hearing Surrender when a Kicks played or White Lion played. So Cheap Trick had a pretty big buzz. I told the owners, do your best to get them. It, trust me, we'll sell out. And they knew. I didn't have to talk them into it. Cheap Trick, turn this down, turn this down, turn this down. Um, it wasn't that they didn't want the money. They just knew another club in that area of Manhattan, not even a club, a venue would pay them the same amount of money and they're not playing a club that they didn't think they fit because by this point this was 86. So at this point we had the reputation of being a trash club. So uh, they're mixing an album called Standing on the Edge at Electric Lady Studios on 8th Street. And it's across the street from a place called It's Only Rock and Roll. Something else we talked about. And one of the people from It's Only Rock and Roll knew I was trying to get them to play, and he goes, "Let me talk to the people across the street." So he talked to them. He talked to somebody named Electric Mary, who managed the studio, and he goes, "Can you get Chuck in to talk to Rick?" One day, I'm at the Hard Rock Cafe when it was on West 57th Street, just having a burger and a beer, and I checked my messages at home. No beepers, no cell phone. And it was like, hurry up, get to Electric Lady if you can. I left my friends, went to Electric Lady, and I pitched everything to Rick Nielsen personally. It was fucking awesome. Rick goes, "Are you sure? I don't think we're heavy enough for the club." I told him one of the biggest reactions I ever got DJing was when I played Hello Kitties, which is a heavy song and the first album, very funkish, when the Ramones played. And he goes, "Really?" I said, yeah. And I said, you'll get over huge, trust me, in the club. And he goes, all right, up the offer. So I'm like, wow. I just met my favorite rock star, and I've hung out with everybody by this point. And I'm like, this is cool. So I go back the next day and I said that they're ready to play. They make them the offer, they accept. They're booked that they canceled. All right, that happened, whatever it was. They get rebooked. Now, by the time they got rebooked in between the first and second time, I ran into the original bass player named Tom Peterson in the limelight one night. Tom sees me with the Lamore jacket and he goes, "You're Chuck from Lamore?" I turn around and it's one of my idols. And I went, "Holy shit." And I was like, "How do you know?" He goes, "I saw the jacket and I asked who you were. I'm in a new band and we love to play Lamore." He left Cheap Trick in '81. So we became really good friends. I called him up and I told him Cheap Trick's playing. And he goes, "Get me on as the opener." Now, this sounds awesome, right? Except think of the reality. Would they want somebody who used to be in their band to be in the open? So I'm like, I gotta check into this, buddy. And so I have the person. I call up the person that was dealing with Chief Trick's agent, and they get back to me. They said no way. So I call up Tom Peterson, and Tom says, "I'm gonna call up Rick personally." Go for it. 10 minutes later, Rick said okay. I call up my guy, Rich Sanders. He talks to Cheap Trick's agent. Cheap Trick's agent goes, "We're okay with it. Let me make sure the managers." The manager says no. All right. Manager tells Cheap Trick's agent. Cheap Trick's agent tells our booking agent. Our booking agent tells me. I tell Tom Peterson, the original bass player, and he goes, "That's not right. I'm talking to Rick again." I'm like, "What the fuck am I in the middle of, man?" Right? So now I know this is going to get stupid. He calls me back 20 minutes later. Rick said, "Okay." I go through this one more time. I get the phone call. I dread it. Cheap Trick's manager said if Chuck doesn't stop asking for this, they're going to cancel again. So now I might be the guy responsible for Cheap Trick canceling on the sold out show because I tried to get a band in. So I tell Tom, "Sorry, man, it ain't happening. I can't even bring it up again. Don't even ask. I can't do anything." He goes, "Fuck them, man. Tell you what, put me on your guest list. I won't even go through them." And he goes, I said, "Oh, that's, yeah." I said, "No problem." So he comes down and he's hanging out in the DJ booth with me. And, he's the guy who played on Green Police, all the big Cheap Trick albums, Budokan. So everybody that's in the audience is like, "Holy shit, that's Tom Peterson up in the DJ booth." Made me look like gold. The band plays. At the end of it, he goes, "Wave me back." So I said, "All right." So I wave him back. 20 minutes later, he comes back up with his lead singer, who was his girlfriend at the time. Sadly, she passed away. I remind me to tell you who she was because there's a funny story with that. And they come up to the booth, and I was like, "What was it like?" And he goes, "It was very strange. It felt like old times." And he goes, "All right, man, we got to cab him back to Manhattan." His girlfriend, Jana, looks at me. I go, "Is he back in the band?" And she goes, "You never know." He wound up rejoining the band. So I am no, I'm going to say fully responsible. No, I am very partially responsible for him getting back. And when he got back in the band, that was the album with the flame on it that went #1 in top 10.
Huge.
So we always kidded that, like, I was responsible for that. So I'm getting interviewed for Cheap Trick book about being the guy who did that and all that. And that they played, they were great. I watched the show from on top of the booth with my feet dangling over. They did a great, great set. A lot of people say that and Maiden and the Metallica rock were the same. Were their three favorite shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what follow-ups you got? Oh, so let me tell you who his girlfriend was. You
Yep.
guys know who Hall and Oates are, right?
Yeah.
You know the song Sarah Smile?
Mm.
Okay, Sarah Smile was written about Jana Allen's sister, Sarah Allen. Jana Allen wrote like 3 or 4 top hits for Hall and Oates, and she was the female lead singer in Tom Peterson's band called Sick Man of You. Okay.
Cool.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is 86, right? I'm looking at set list now. That's
Yeah,
why I'm
86.
asking.
If you on my Facebook, you'll see the whole set list, and there's actually audio from the show, full audio that somebody recorded from the soundboard.
Very
You
cool.
can probably find it on YouTube if you put Cheap Trick Brooklyn Lamore.
Yeah, they played three covers. They played Rainy Day Woman from Bob Dylan, if I'm looking at the set list correctly here. I think the cool thing about Cheap Trick is that, especially like as time went on, they became a band that metalheads, punk rockers, indie rockers,
Yes,
like everybody could love. Like everyone
yeah,
like they could open forever. I know like the Smashing Pumpkins got involved with them.
yeah,
A band I love, Guided by Voices, got involved with
yeah,
them.
yeah,
It was just they're just a band that like just doesn't matter. Like they just transcend genres, which
yeah.
is so cool.
It was funny because me being so open about Cheap Trick made a lot of closet Cheap Trick fans to come up to me. Randy Piper from Was, Charlie Benante, and Scotty in from Anthrax. Scotty in from Anthrax to this day will jam with Cheap Trick when he sees them. They covered two Cheap Trick songs, Big Eyes and Awful saying Anthrax. Mike Tramp was a big, from White Lion, was a big fan of Robin Zander. And it was a lot of Slash. That's a show we should talk about too, Guns N' Roses. If we don't get
Yeah.
to it today. I forgot about that. Slash was very influenced by Rick Nielsen. Sebastian told me personally that he wanted to be Robin Zander when he was a kid. There's all those connections. And here's a funny one that people might not realize. John Lennon, if he was still alive, his next album was going to be with Cheap Trick. They were going to be his backing band.
Wow.
Because Rick Nielsen and Buddy Carlos played on Double Fantasy, but Yoko took him off because this was when Cheap Trick was at their peak. This was right when Green Police was hitting. She thought they got too much publicity. When John, I was friends with Jack Douglas, Aerosmith's producer, and he produced what's that thing you shirt, Rich? That's right.
Zebra.
He produced Zebra as well. So I knew the real story. So he was going to do if this was after Double Fantasy, and when he got shot, his next album would have been him and Cheap Trick, and Cheap Trick was going to go on the road, and they talked about the Cheap Trick would open, stay on stage, and John would come out, and they do material together. So John Lennon said that Cheap Trick sounded like what the Beatles would have sounded like in 1980 or 79 before he passed.
Wow.
The
What a
craziest one, Kurt Cobain said Nirvana was Cheap Trick with tuned down guitars. Now, it
it's a
sounds weird, but if you listen to a song like Come At
Yeah.
You All, that's basically down from their second album. And the Foo Fighters were huge Cheap Trick fans.
Downed is my favorite Cheap Trick
Yeah,
song, by the way. My absolute favorite Cheap
yeah,
Trick song. And you mentioned Kurt Cobain. It's just so funny. Those bands that people call out. I've seen interviews with Cobain where he mentioned the Smithereens as
yeah,
being a huge influence also. And I love the Smithereens. Just a band from up your guys' way and our way back in the day
yeah,
that they didn't get, they had a hit, but didn't get all the recognition that
absolutely.
like these bands and the influences that these guys had on them. So yeah,
Yeah. And then, like, if you look at Billy Corrigan's favorite band is Cheap Trick, Joe Perry's favorite band is Cheap Trick. He said his favorite live band is Cheap Trick. Steve Tyler was a huge Cheap Trick fan. So they had the weirdest career because there was a period of time where Epic really fucked them over. And they got it back together. If they would have been left alone, people like because you said Down is one of your favorite songs. They were really a garage band. And then they worked with a producer that cleaned them up, and the record company started wanting to give them outside songwriters. They fit more with, they were like, they could open and play with the Ramones and AC/DC, and they did in the same year. They were that type of band. But yeah, Rick Nielsen said the greatest quote. He goes, "We're very few people's favorite band, but was everybody's second to fifth favorite band." And it kind of works, man.
yeah. Once you could hear it too, like after Dream Police, like even on Dream Police, like just the production being
Yeah.
just turned up, and turned up, and then after that, just full on,
Yeah,
I don't even know how to
what
call it.
should never have happened with Cheap Trick was adding in the keyboards. That second album was so great. You got the rawness of Down is awesome, but then they put the honky tonk keyboards on I Want You to Want Me, which was ruined. And it was like, and they have their issues with Tom Werman, and Tom Werman, that was the producer, has his issues with them. But I mean, their first album with Jack Douglas was just raw, raw, raw. And it would have been nice to see what they would have done if the record company didn't fuck them up. But they're still out there. They're still doing good. They had a pretty fucking awesome career, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. I knowing the story now that they would have been John's backing band if he didn't get killed makes me hate the fact that John got shot even more.
Well, did you ever hear when George Martin, engineer, I can't remember his name right now. He did in the mid zeros, maybe 2007. They did a bunch of Vegas shows where they did Sergeant Pepper on full live, but the Beatles never played that live, and Cheap Trick was who played it.
They're doing it again. They're
Yeah,
doing some shows out there. I think this year
yeah,
that
but
they're
yeah,
doing that.
and it was like it went over huge, and it kind of gave them a career boost. And it's actually funny because that's why Bunny Carlos left the band, the drummer. What happened was, so they did whatever 2 months of that, and then they went back out and they started doing their own stuff. They got an offer to do like a 6 month or 3 to 6 month residency in Vegas doing Sergeant Pepper. And Bunny said he wanted to do it, and the band goes, "That's too long, man. We're going to become the Beatles cover band." And Bunny's like, "It's the money. I want to take it." So him and Robin got into a big fight, and they basically said, "All right, Bunny, you're out," because they wanted to see if they can have another run at being like a big band, and it was the right move to make. Because look, nobody's going to replace Bunny Collins. But when they got Rick's son in as a drummer, they signed the new contract, and they came out with four of their best albums. They've had the album charts are different now, but I think three of them went top 10. They're playing 4 or 5 thousand seaters again. So it was. I get both sides. Let's go for the money. We've been around 30 something years. Cheap Trick wanted to still be considered a vital, band.
Well, I mean, as a drummer, I understand what it's like to be poor. So going for the money would have been my move too.
Well, I don't think Buddy was poor. You know what I mean? He wasn't Cheap Trick.
Yeah,
I mean, they always made a living. But I get it. He's like, they're offering us a ridiculous amount of money. It's about time we realize we're never going to be as big as we were. We're not going to headline the Garden anymore. But the band still wanted to be, considered vital and new again. And that's where the split happened. It was because of, you know, Bunny wanted to do the Beatles cover thing and the band didn't.
gotcha. So, also on the list, moving on from Cheap Trick, we could probably talk about Cheap Trick all night.
Yeah,
Next on the list, you have Iron Maiden.
right,
And so for me, Iron Maiden, that was the quintessential band when I was growing up.
right.
Um, every album that came out as I was growing up, picked it up day one. Every time they came through the metal hands, I was going to
Well, let me ask you this question: when did you first learn about Iron Maiden? Because you were younger, so fill me in
So,
on both of you guys.
gotcha. So for me, I missed the first album, but I came on for Killers.
Cool, that's good
That was
enough.
the first one. So Paul
How
Giano on
old were you
vocals.
then? How old were you when you got turned on the Killers?
What year?
13ish.
Um,
So it's probably
would
81.
81. I would have been. See,
Come on, buddy, it's math.
I would have
You
been. I
really
would have
are a
been.
fucking drummer.
I am.
Holy shit! Numbers? How do they work?
I would have been 8 years old.
No way.
Yeah.
You were 8 years old and you were hip to music that much?
Yeah. My dad played bass when he was growing up, and
Oh, that's awesome, man.
before he met my mom. So my dad got me into a lot of music when I shouldn't have been listening to those types of bands.
No, I get that, but listening to Iron Maiden at 8 is fucking awesome, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
have
you
you as a
beat
guest on my podcast.
you beat me. I probably started to understand what was going on when Somewhere in Time came out because I
Right.
remember specifically my dad taking me to Crazy Eddie's and me getting that record, and then getting the crazy 7-inch, the 12-inch singles, the picture discs,
Yeah,
Stranger to Stranger, all that stuff, and then started to kind of work my way backwards from
Yeah.
there because I came in a little bit late and started with like some of the more the hair metally stuff,
Yeah.
given where I was at in my musical journey. And then somebody gave me a Misfits tape, and everything changed after
Oh
that.
wow,
That was when life
that's
changed for
life
me.
changing. That's life changing.
Yeah.
I would have
So
loved to have done a Misfit show, man. It's a shame that didn't work out. So
So
let me ask you this, because before when I was in high school, for let's say, I used to go to the mall every Friday night and just go through the albums, looking for cool album covers. Did you guys do that too?
I I did.
So I can imagine seeing Iron Maiden's covers.
Yep.
That must have been life changing. Going, wow, what a cool fucking album cover. You know,
Well,
yeah,
and picking up on the fact that they had the same person or
yeah,
on each album cover in a different variation going forward was also an
yeah.
attraction for me.
Yeah, the whole anything. I am
Yeah.
so glad when Killers when between Killers, yeah, no, actually when Number the Beast came out, it was Number the Beast. I made an appointment to get a tattoo of Eddie. I am so glad I chickened out because that would look ridiculous on a 60 fucking 3-year-old. I just have this hairy skeleton like on my, but for a little bit I was like, a medal for life, dude. Yeah, I was like whatever, 19 years old. But yeah, so um all right, so what questions do you got for the Maiden thing? Because since you guys are big fans, maybe we'll reverse it, and you can ask me.
You told us a story last time about you going to
Growing up
Steve
on Steve
Harris.
Harris. Yeah.
Yep, which was
Well,
great.
that's not how the show happens.
Yeah. So when they first
Steve, you
came
want to play
through,
the woo? Yeah.
was it Paul Diano on vocals at that point, or was it moved
No,
over to
no,
Bruce?
no, no. This was Bruce.
Okay.
This was 88.
Yeah.
Rich is looking it up, right? What was
yeah,
it?
May
Summer of
8th,
88?
1988. Yeah,
What was the date
Seventh
on that
Sun
one?
tour, May 8th.
May, so it was right around the summer, right? I remember it was nice out. I, the, they would always come to the club to hang out. They came to the club one night without Bruce on a Thursday before I worked there, and TT Quick played, and they ran up and they did Rothschild with Mark from TT Quick, who's now Mark from Accept, right?
Yeah.
So they always liked the club. When I started working there and I became friendly with Steve, it became even like, yeah, it was a little more. So I told you, sorry, Steve came to the club after I threw up on him, blah, 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 to see Fates Warning and all that. So they would always come there. Whenever they would walk in, the owners smartly would be like, when are you going to play here? When are you going to play here? Steve would always say, I'd love to. That's still a big get. Yeah, he loved to play there. He loved jamming there.
Yeah.
But are we really going to book Iron Maiden? So it went back and forth, back and forth. Like I said, Rod Smallwood. So this ties together. Rod Smallwood was so impressed by that Metallica Wasp on the same weekend because he managed Wasp that the club handled these three bands. They should before they played us or afterwards. They played the Mid Hudson Civic Center, a huge 3,500 person venue with a huge stage, huge backstage. Their backstage was as big as one wall. The club was.
Yeah.
We put on the same level of professionalism as venues were. And he was impressed. So I forgot the exact details, but there was something that happened and we worked it out that they had this open window to play. I believe it was on a Sunday, and they were like, do it at Charlotte the Harlot because even though everybody knew they were Maiden, there's contracts about Maiden playing certain places. That everything's connected to something stupid. So Maiden gets announced. So I get the phone call, Maiden's playing. Immediately, I'm going, oh my God, who am I going to get to open for them? And it was like, are you nuts? We don't need anybody. It's just going to,
Yeah.
like, entire Maiden. It's like, gee, maybe we can draw one more, person. It's like it would be a sellout in advance. So Maiden's book, and my God, the buzz. People to this day write that they didn't believe Charlotte the Harlot was Maiden. They thought it was going to be some bad cover band or something, and
So
they
funny.
and they missed out on it. So that was one of maybe three. I think the only 3 days I got there purposely early for sound check were these three shows. Were the three shows we talked about. Chief Trick, obviously, I said I got there early, and for Maiden, I wanted to be there for that. Um, they loved it. If Have you guys ever seen the video that's on YouTube?
I have not from the Lamar
Oh,
show.
you got to look. You'll see it. It's incredible. They put on an arena level show. They loved it. It was one of the better Maiden shows I've seen because they just had so much fun. That's that was Iron Maiden in the early days. They were a pub band that became an arena band. This was the closest thing to them reliving what it was like when they were in their early 20s.
Yeah.
I get there. Sound check was great. The guys are great. I didn't hang out with them a lot because I had to work. I had a DJ. And this is one of the nights that the club told me we don't want anybody else spinning because I used to have assistants and backups spinning for me um, for the first hour or so I can do work in the office, booking bands, taking phone calls, doing press. Tonight they were like, "We need you there from beginning to end." So whenever the club opened, I had to be in the booth. So, but afterwards, I think it was Nico who came up to me and he goes, "We doing an after hours?" And I was like, "Let me make a call." So I made a call to a friend of mine that had a rehearsal studio in Flatbush. It was called Sync the Pink at the time, but later somebody bought it from him and they changed the name of it. I forgot the name of it, but and he goes, "Yeah, they can come. We can jam all night." And he goes, "Yeah, I'll leave it up to you who's invited." But they couldn't. They had to do something, and I think maybe Rod didn't want them out fucking getting fucked up. But that would have been really, really legendary. But yeah, made him play the club, sold it out. The thing I didn't like about that show was scalpers got involved, and I hated seeing the kids
Yeah.
paying whatever 25, 30 hours for a ticket in 1988. You know what I mean? For a $10, $12 ticket. I mean, Maiden played for a reasonable price so they can play for the kids and the fans. I hated that part about it. Otherwise, it was brilliant. It was a
They put,
brilliant, brilliant night. What
Yeah.
questions you got? I see
they
Rich
put,
already. Rich is doing homework as we're working.
yeah. I was looking at the set list because I love looking at set lists and
Cool.
seeing like what they played. Like they played "The Prisoner," which is a song I've never seen them actually play, which is one of
Right.
my favorite Maiden songs, and which doesn't
What
get
what
pulled
did
out
what did
enough.
they open with? I'm trying to remember.
Hold on, I will go back. They opened with oh, that's the Cheap Trick set. Hold on, I will tell you.
They
I will
opened with
tell
"Hello
you.
There." Wow.
Hold on,
Well,
I
talk
just
about
had it up.
influence. All right, Steve
Uh,
Harris, you can only play if you open up with "Hello There" by Cheap Trick.
oh goodness. Hold on.
Yeah, it was a weird opener for them, and they did it because they were playing a club and they wanted to have fun.
Moonchild is what they opened
Yes,
with.
yes. So it wasn't like a typical opener for them, like
Yeah.
Ratchild or Odds and Marches to Ratchild. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I just remember the Trooper being one of the loudest things I ever heard because everybody doing the oh God, I can't sing, but you know the rest.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Very cool.
yeah. So questions, Rich, go for it.
Yeah, I was just looking at this, and I'm going to do some more homework later. Like you mentioned, like did they change it up? Like did they change the setup? Did they do other things? Because now they're like this arena band, which is almost
Yeah,
like a Broadway show. Like there are songs they're going to play in this order with these gigantic planes coming through, and all of the effects and everything that they had. But
right.
it sounds like they were still when they did this show were way more of like that club
Well,
band.
here's the thing: they weren't on tour. So I'm glad you brought that up. It's a good way to. So this was just a gig of them going. I don't even know if they rehearsed for it or whatever. I'm sure I probably found out because I knew them. But it was just them having a blast before they did something else. I think the equipment was being flown into the States to go somewhere else. And it was like, we're going to be in New York. Lamar. It was something like along those lines where just the timing was fucking perfect, man.
That's awesome.
And but yeah, no. So that show was about them having fun, and which is why it was my favorite time seeing them. Because, like you said, you know, like Maiden was the type of band that they had their set list, and it was down pat, and they did it, and it was phenomenal. One of the greatest live bands ever. I mean, I one of my favorite concerts. was Maiden opening up for Judas Priest at the Palladium. They were on the Killers tour, so they had Paul Di'Anno. What a double bill. It was the first time a lot of people seen Iron Maiden. Seeing Maiden coming out and even being a little punkier because of Paul Di'Anno. And then
Yeah.
Priest coming out, and Priest was on the Heading Out to the Highway album. I think that's what was the point of entry. What
Yep.
a double bill. But yeah, once they got Bruce, they would, you know, I'm not saying they lost anything. I mean, they were a better band, but they were kind of like that arena level band. And it was fun to see them back being just this like almost punky metal band. You know, not punky metals, but but just like the raw energy, man. It was so much fun to watch.
So as a drummer, Nico was another one of those guys like Neil Peart was.
But
I would put on a headset, boombox, put a cassette in, and just played a Maiden to learn stuff.
Yeah. No
What
one
an
was great
amazing
about
influence.
Nico. I was a big Clive fan. I really liked Clive.
Yeah,
I really
he's
thought
good.
Clive's hi-hat work on the Number the Beast album was incredible. I love how he flowed with the hi-hat when he was doing beats. Nico came in and I talked with him. I met him at Lamoury's one night and he invited me to the show whatever tour was the Quiet Riot opened up for them. It was probably what is it? Peace of Mind, I'm assuming. Just thinking at the time. So I remember I was hanging out and I brought a drummer. It was a drummer from Law and Order actually with me, and we were hanging out in the limo, not doing drugs or anything. No, we would never do stuff like that. So we just hang out in the limo, and I remember we were talking about drums, and what was really cool about Nico was how he'd rake up beats with his toms. He was
Yeah.
more of a percussive drummer than heavy metal was used to. Like he played heavy metal drums, but with a percussionist kind of, Am I right, Jake?
It was orchestral
Yeah. Oh,
in
that's
some
good.
sort of way. The way
You will
the way
see
they-
him.
Yeah.
You'll see him around South Florida. I used to see
Oh,
him
that's
around.
right. Yeah,
and he's got a barbecue joint. I'm in Central Florida now, but I used to go to his barbecue joint, and I used to drag my wife there and be like, "We're going to go to this barbecue joint. I'm a vegetarian, but we're going to go anyway." Because you don't know if he's going to be there, and I could go and I could fanboy a little bit while
that's nothing wrong
while
with
I
that.
eat a veggie burger at a barbecue place. That's
Did you ever see the video of him playing with some metal cover band? And it was him and Bobby Gustafson from Overkill playing with a metal cover band. Look it up.
No, but he's doing that. I think I saw he's playing with like a Maiden cover band down in Florida. Either it happened or it's gonna happen. So
you talking Nico or Bobby?
Nico.
Oh, that's incredible. That's
hysterical. Yeah, that's I have to go look that up. I know we said we were going to do 4 shows, but I have to go in like 2 minutes.
No,
so and we've kept you longer than we promised you.
I can talk, man. I apologize.
I want us to talk next time about the show we missed. I'm going to wear my other Zebra shirt because I want to hear about Zebra when we have just you, Chuck, on the show.
You're gonna clean it between now and then, right?
I have 2, so this one will just go in a pile.
You liar!
I think I have 3 Zebra shirts. I got to actually meet those guys at a meet and greet twice, actually, relatively recently.
So put this in.
Such
We'll
cool
talk about
guys.
Zebra. We'll talk about Guns N' Roses, and I also want to talk about when Cinderella opened up for Kicks.
Oh, I'd love to hear all
That's
those
another
things.
arena band that started out very small. They played the club twice. First time was on my birthday. They played my birthday party in October of '85. But when they opened up for Kicks in '86, there's a really funny story about it.
Teaser, I love it, Chuck. Teaser, Chuck. I can't say thank you enough for doing this.
Give me a shot.
I don't have enough time to.
I talk to accounts payable.
But thank you so much, Jay. Always a pleasure. I will talk to you again very soon. And everyone, and you say it, Jay, about what to do for if they're watching this show.
You'd like to like and subscribe.
Yes, because that's what we are. We're that. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, Chuck. And thank you, Jay. And everybody have a great night.
Take care, guys. Peace out.
Thank you.
See you, Chuck.